Hay un rumor, hay un extranjero entre nosotros.
Nuestro jefe se cuidará de la rata. Si la plaga es mucho mejor que la nuestra.
Tienes razón. Es un
You carry the same blood as us, it seems. Nevertheless, you're an outsider. Just remember, if you become unpleasant to our eyes, you'll face severe consequences.
Bitores Mendez is one of the main antagonists of the game Resident Evil 4, being the one that the player will predominantly contend with for the first act of the game. Bitores Mendez is a character who is integral to the events surrounding the story of the game. Not only is he a predominant member of the Los Illuminados cult, but he's also the chief of the village of El Pueblo.
Perfect. The big cheese. What?
The story of Bitores Mendez's past isn't one that we really have much information about. We really only know two concrete things about him prior to his affiliation with Los Illuminados. Number one, at some point, Mendez was the father of a local Catholic church in the town of El Pueblo. And number two, at some point, he gave up his position at the church in favor of becoming chief of the village. However, even though those are two minor facts, they do give us insight into a probable background for him. Like all of the villagers that we know of, Mendez was probably born in the village of El Pueblo, his background probably mirroring the traditions of the people there. Like them, Mendez would have been brought up on the tales of the first Castilian and his triumph over the paganist religions in the region, with his biggest victory being the defeat of the Los Illuminados. It's also probable that due to the authority of his position at the church, it may be what led him to be a leader of this community and instilled him as a trusted pillar to those around him. And it's undoubtedly his status in this village that drew Osman Sadler into El Pueblo, seeking his partnership. At an unknown point in time prior to 2004, Bitores Mendez was approached by a man named Osman Sadler and converted to the Los Illuminados. The means by which this occurred isn't specified, but it was likely a play for greater power, as once Mendez sees the effects of Las Plagas and the people of his village start to suffer, he still seems to have no ill will towards Sadler, as you would think he would if it was deception. Regardless of what their deal was, however, it seems likely that Mendez was approached by Sadler as a means to acquire the labor for the excavation of Las Plagas from underneath Salazar's castle, Mendez becoming a convert in the process. And once the parasite had been recovered and research into its properties done, Mendez and Sadler went into El Pueblo to convert the village to the new religion.
Oh, la campana. Es hora de rezar. Tenemos que irnos. Lord Sadler.
On a Sunday after the village's annual harvest festival, all of the citizens of El Pueblo were asked to join Chief Mendez at the church, and it was here, after an introduction from Mendez, that Sadler convinced all of them to join the once reviled Los Illuminados, telling the villagers that the first Castilian of the nearby castle had actually been a tyrannical leader who had locked away the Las Plagas out of jealousy, and the most recent Castilian, realizing his ancestors' mistakes, had allowed the cult to retrieve the remains. Under Mendez's influence, the villagers were all given an infusion containing Las Plagas, with those refusing this sacred blood being subjected to peer pressure and shame. And once all the citizens of El Pueblo were under the parasitic control of Las Plagas, they were subject to follow every wish that Chief Mendez willed.
No dejes que se escape.
Vayan por detrás.
Why are these people?
Bloqueale el paso.
What are they planning? chainsaw.
During the events of the game, Bitores Mendez has a lot on his plate, but his main objective seems to be to capture and detain Dr. Luis Serra, one of the bioweapon researchers who had been working with Las Plagas. Serra had made contact with an outside organization and had stolen samples of the parasite on their behalf. This theft, however, coincided with Sadler's plan to abduct the daughter of the president, Ashley Graham, which of course drew in a United States operative for her rescue, Leon S. Kennedy. On top of that, the organization with which Luis was in contact had also sent their own operative into the area, Ada Wong, making for a very difficult time for Mendez. With the help of the villagers, however, Mendez was able to capture both Luis and Leon, holding them together at the behest of Lord Sadler. And while Mendez questioned the purpose for Sadler's dealings with the American agent, he followed them regardless. However, as Mendez thought was a possibility, the duo escaped their confines, Luis disappearing and the American resuming his attempt to find Ashley. Mendez was back to square one, and with the American's success in retrieving his target, Mendez was forced to enact his final plan to stop the pair from escaping to Salazar's castle. It was true that Mendez had underestimated this American's abilities, thought that he could bide his time until the American and the president's daughter's Plagas were fully grown and were able to be controlled. But the agent wasn't backing down. So Mendez put into place the village's last defense, a gauntlet of barriers for this agent to overcome. Even if he could survive the ambush at the house, even if he did defeat the Gigante in the ravine, even if he did manage to survive the Ganados on the ski lift, there was no way that he could stand up to the might of Chief Bitores Mendez.